In a world teetering between wild instinct and early awareness, 6.3 million years ago, the Earth was a canvas of change. The winds carried the scent of primal forests and sun-baked savannas, while rivers carved their stories into the bones of continents. Somewhere in the shadows of early human evolution, life stirred not just human, but every living creature that breathed, crawled, flew, and swam in a world still raw with possibility. Long before names and nations, long before cities and languages, there were eyes watching from the trees and hearts pounding in the underbrush. And in this ancient time, among these untamed beings, began the earliest unspoken connection between animal and hominin, a bond that, though primitive and silent, would evolve into something extraordinary. That bond, rooted in survival, would someday bloom into the compassion behind rescue. It's easy to forget that we were never alone, even in the infancy of our evolution. While proto-humans stumbled upright on uncertain legs, somewhere nearby was the gentle tread of a four-legged companion. Not a pet, not a tool, but a fellow traveler in the shared pursuit of food, shelter, and safety. While the scientific record may not document it in fossils or bones, deep within the emotional landscape of early life, stories unfolded, stories of unlikely companionship, fierce protection, and mutual need. These tales belong to creatures who didn't sign treaties, but silently pledged loyalty. They belong to animals whose courage, loyalty, and suffering set the foundation for what we now call rescue. Fast forward across millennia, and that ancient connection resurfaces again and again. In war zones, during natural disasters, or abandoned by careless hands, animals look into human eyes, not with fear, but hope. Every rescue tale echoes that ancient companionship, proof that, from the very start, we were meant to walk beside them. Take the story of Tala, a Saluki dog found limping through the sands near a Syrian border. Her paws were cracked, her body scarred from a life of neglect and war. She trusted no one until she met Amina, a nurse volunteering at a refugee camp. Amina saw something familiar in Tala's eyes, something old and wounded. Slowly, over weeks, Tala let her guard down. What started as shared scraps of food and cautious glances grew into a quiet understanding. When Tala finally rested her head in Amina's lap, the ancient circle closed once again. It wasn't just about saving an animal. It was about saving a part of ourselves. Tala now lives in Europe, warm and safe. Her howl no longer one of despair, but of joy. In the jungles of Borneo, where the trees still whisper tales older than language, a baby orangutan clung to a dead tree, orphaned by illegal logging. He was malnourished, dehydrated, and dying. Others called him Cora, after the wind. When rescuers from an animal sanctuary found him, they wrapped him in a blanket and fed him milk from a dropper. He was too weak to resist, too young to understand that kindness wasn't a trick. As days turned into weeks, Cora began to thrive, learning to swing, play, and even trust. The caretakers who raised him wore masks to avoid human imprinting, but the bond between species still bloomed in each tender gesture. Cora will one day return to the forest, but he'll carry with him the invisible thread woven through time that humans, once mere shadows in the evolutionary story, can still choose to protect rather than destroy. Not every rescue tale ends with the return to the wild. Some begin and end in cities, in cages, in alleys, or beneath broken bridges. In Detroit, a pit bull named Mercy was found shivering in a snowstorm, her body covered in cigarette burns. No one knew how long she'd been alone, but she had dug a hole beneath a broken porch to keep warm. When volunteers from a rescue center approached her, Mercy didn't bark, she didn't growl. She simply looked at them with eyes that had seen too much. It took hours to gain her trust, but once rescued, she transformed into a loving, gentle creature who now visits schools with her handler, teaching children about empathy. Mercy's story is a reminder that the pain we cause can be healed, but only if we choose to act. In India, a young boy named Arjun was walking home from school when he found a tiny kitten stuck in a gutter. It was monsoon season, and the rains had turned the streets into rivers. Most passers-by ignored the cry, but Arjun stopped. He had no money, no formal education in animal care, but he had compassion. He wrapped the kitten in his school shirt and took it home. His mother, at first reluctant, helped him warm milk and clean the creature's wounds. That kitten, now named Bidgley, is a full-grown cat who sleeps by Arjun's side every night. For a boy who had little, rescuing Bidgley was not just an act of kindness, it was a mirror to his own resilience. In the vast deserts of Australia, a camel named Duma wandered into a mining town after being abandoned by a tourist safari. Dehydrated and skeletal, she stumbled through the dust until a retired ranger named Bill found her. Bill had no reason to take her and he lived alone, miles from the nearest town, but something about Duma's broken gait reminded him of his own life after losing his wife. He built her a pen, fed her slowly back to health, and talked to her like an old friend. Duma followed Bill wherever he went, even sitting beside him while he watched the sunset. Even in the depths of the ocean, rescue plays out. A pod of dolphins near the coast of New Zealand began acting strangely, circling a swimmer, slapping the water. At first, onlookers feared aggression, but it was later discovered that a great white shark had been nearby. The dolphins were shielding the swimmer. Marine biologists still debate the intention, but stories like these are repeated across decades. Whales protecting divers from predators, seals seeking refuge on human boats. Somewhere, deep in their instincts, lies a thread that binds our species in more than just biology. In Thailand, an old elephant named Malai was used for illegal logging long after her strength had faded. Chained, beaten, and blind in one eye, she lived a life of suffering until a rescue organization stepped in, transporting her to an elephant sanctuary. The rescuers weren't sure if she would ever adapt. But when Malai entered the sanctuary, another elephant named Bunchu approached her, gently touching her trunk with his. From that day on, they were inseparable. They bathed together, walked together, and slept under the same trees. Malai's body bore the scars of her past, but her spirit began to mend. Visitors who meet her often cry, not because of her pain, but because of her peace. A creature once used, now loved. Sometimes, the rescuers are animals themselves. In Turkey, a stray dog named Zeki was known for following an elderly homeless man, Mehmet, wherever he went. One winter night, Mehmet collapsed from hypothermia. Zeki didn't leave his side. Instead, he barked until passersby stopped, then lay across Mehmet's chest to keep him warm. That act saved Mehmet's life. In the grand arc of evolution, humans became dominant not just because of intelligence, but because of empathy. It allowed us to form bonds, to live in groups, to protect the weak. That same empathy now reaches across species. We don't just protect our own, we protect those with feathers, scales, fur, and fins. We take in the broken, the abandoned, the overlooked. And in doing so, we mend something in ourselves. Every adoption, every rescue, every second chance we give is a whisper to our ancient past. We remember. We remember walking beside wolves before they became dogs. We remember cradling the injured. We remember that life, all life, matters. So whether it's a lion cub rescued from a circus, a parrot freed from a cage, or a turtle guided back to the sea, each rescue is more than just compassion in motion. It's a story passed down from when the earth was young and wild, from a time when we were no more than shadows in the trees. Learning to care, learning to feel. Rescue isn't new, it's ancient. And every time we choose to love what others discard, we become part of that oldest tale, one that began 6.3 million years ago and still hasn't ended.